side. Lace cup, I need to make a notch there on the lace. Now obviously you can't do it with a pen because it doesn't work very well, so what I'm going to do with a pin, I'll show you what I mean. Basically taking the point where it says A, and on each piece of lace I've put a little pin. On that one I put a pin, and on that one I put a pin, so I know that that's A. So we've got to keep that there until we start sewing it together. I want us to put the stay tape along the top here, and I've decided that this is the wrong side and that which has a little bit more of a shine to it is the right side. So the stay tape goes along the wrong side. You can pin it, but she always advises that you don't. Now I think I might just pin it to be on the safe side. Okay, so I've pinned the stay tape in place, and I'm going to do a straight stitch. All fabric to fabric are sewn with a straight stitch and a length of 2.5. So I'm going to set my machine to 2.5, and I'm so the next one is sew the front lower cup to the middle lower cup from A to B points, matching the notch on the curved seam. Please be careful with the orientation of these two pieces as they are easily turned the wrong way. So that's a warning. Obviously there's a lot of people make that mistake, and I think that's where you can end up with a flat bust area. Open the seam and top stitch. So let's get the pieces together. The lower cup and the middle lower cup. So there's my lower cup and my middle lower cup. So it's got an A there and an A there, a B to a B. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a dot there and a dot there on both sides, and then I'm going to put 2 dots there and 2 dots there with this Prim trick marker pen. I've got 2 singular dots there and 2 double dots there, complete with cat hair. So now I'm going to take that and put them together. So I'm going to sew along that seam there, move that one away, turn this over and that over, and then I'm going to put that one, 2 single dots with 2 double dots there on that side, and I'm going to sew those together. So this should look like that. Now you get that kind of change in the fabric because of the way that the grain there is going that way and the grain's going that way. So it does look a bit different, but once it's sewn together it'll be fine. So now I'm going to sew down here, 1/4 inch, down there, straight stitch, and the same down there, straight stitch. So pick one up at a time, don't take them both because otherwise you get lost. And you're going to go from your single dot to your double dot. Right, so I'm going to be going 1/4 inch in. What I have to bear in mind is if I start right on the edge, it's going to probably pucker it. So I'll move in a bit and put my needle down, and then I'm going to reverse it to start with. I'm going to do a couple of reverse. I'm going to hold on to this thread at the back to stop it from going snagging. I'm going to go back a bit, and then I go forward. Right, keep holding onto the thread at the back, and then I start doing my straight stitch. Make sure the edges are touching exactly there, and then do your 1/4 inch. Then I'm not going to go right to the edge. I'm going to reverse just before I come to the end there. 1 stitch, I think that would be all I need to do, and then out. Lift that up, pull that out, And then what I have to do is I have to open it out and iron that seam open like that. You don't even need to iron it, you can just press it with your finger and it should open a bit like that. And then what we're going to do is turn it over, making sure it's flat as you go, and top stitch down either side of that seam. I'm going to do the other one first. So now we're going to top stitch that on the other side, so turn it over, but you have to make certain that you're not catching the fabric the wrong way, so make sure it's all lying right. And then you're going to do, this is where your skill comes in, because you've got to keep it without straying. You've got to try and keep it within the, just to the side of the seam. Now I can see better with my glasses, I'm going to take them off and sew just to the side of the seam. Basically that's one side that I've done there, and now I'm going to turn it over and do the other side. Make sure it's lying flat, yes it is, and like that, bring your needle down and start sewing the other side. It's not as easy to recognise this because it's glowing a bit when you're sewing, so it's hard, the fabric's glowing, so it's not as easy to see where you've been and where you're going. When I say it's glowing, I mean it's reflecting. I'm getting a reflection that's quite distracting, but that's worked, I think. Let's have a look. If it doesn't, you can always pull it out and take it and redo it. There you go. So that's that one done, and you can see it's either side of the seam, and then we do the same with the other side. So I've sewn them and done the top stitch on either side of the seam there. I've pressed it, but if you want to make it lie a bit better, run your finger around the back like that and curve it outwards, because that's the way the bra is going to go, and it'll lie better that way. Do the same on that one. Bend it. You're basically easing the stitches to go lie in the direction that the bra is going to go. So that's those two done. Right, so this is the bit that gets you confused, because it says here you've got to sew the lace to the top, and you've got you look at that and you think, right, well that should go probably like that, but it doesn't. You've got to turn it that way, because what's happening is your lace is going to go along the longest bit there, and what you're looking at there is actually this bit here. So you're going to sew your lace around there, and it's going to go round and pick it up there. Now you think, oh golly, that's not going to work, there's not enough fabric, but there is. So you need to be right sides together, and you need to match that pin at that point where the seam is, and then we have to sew it. So it's all done by eyesight more than anything. So basically, get your fabric together, stitch it, and you have to do more or less the same thing, a 1/4 inch seam, and then we top stitch the same way as we did the previous piece. So you have the two facing each other like that with the curves there. That's the top of your bra, and that one there as well. You then get your lace, and your lace has to be right sides together. So that stay tips on this side, that is the right side. Right sides together. Now this is where it's a bit awkward to try and see, because lace is not easy to see, but basically your pin there will be stitched exactly on top of that line there. So what you can, when you're sewing it round, it all meets exactly, and then you work your way around the other side. Now make sure you do the same thing with this one, that you have the right sides together. There's my tape on the outside. You match your seam, that mark, to the joint there, And then what we're going to do is we're going to stitch a 1/4 inch stitch right the way around there, and the same there. Again, she says don't tack it, don't pin it. But if you want to, I would pin maybe towards where the seam is, just to so you know exactly where you're matching it up there. So just to keep me straight, I've pinned that to match the seam underneath, and here I'm going to get that just in line with the fabric again, and basically you have to ease it in. So let's see if I can get you a bit closer without right. Then I'm going to start a little bit in as I did before. Same thing, the stitch is still 2.5 straight. Oops, 2.5 straight stitch. Sorry about that, folks. I'm going to go into the fabric first, and then I'm going to go forward one, and then I'm going to go back again. Right, now I'm going to hold my thread at the back again and start going forward again, and I'm going to, you have to make sure it all lies on top of this, the lace lies exactly on top, and you're only sewing 1/4 inch. I'm probably a bit too far in there, so I'll move my needle across a bit to 1/4 inch there. Now I just guessed the 1/4 inch, but obviously some of you might not know what 1/4 inch is. Let me see if I can. I'm old-fashioned, and so obviously is Beverly. She does 1/4 inches. I'm sorry, I'm trying to find a tape measure. I did have a tape measure on here. Where's my tape measure gone? Hang fire, girls. I'll find a tape measure. Right, those of you who are oldies like me, you would probably know that 1/4 inch is basic from one. That's 1 inch, that's 1/2 inch, and half of that is 1/4 inch. So from that one to there is about 1/4 inch. Now the same on here, if we do it in millimeters, is going to be about 6 mil. So you want it to be about 6 mil away from the edge. Okay, so 6 mil on here will be about there. Okay, it's not very far, not very much. So I basically just guess it. I'm probably making it a bit less than 1/4 inch when I do it, but I need to probably put it in a little bit more there, right? And then I'm going to start sewing around. So because lace moves around, you've got to make sure it stays in the same place. So around there, my lace is jumping a bit, so just try to make sure it doesn't bounce away too much. I'm lifting this up and turning it. Sorry, you can't see. And then just pressing it down to ease it in. I'm reaching the needle, so I'll take the needle out and then carry on. And then, turn it round, lift your needle up and turn it, because your fabric's going to go round on the steepest part of the curve, and you may have to pull your lace a bit to do it. So I'm sewing it on, pulling the lace as I go to make sure it stays in place. Right, and take it out. I've strayed a bit here, just a little bit there, but the rest is 1/4 inch, so probably I might unpick that and redo that a little bit, because it might make it lie a bit wrong. So I'll unpick that, but the rest of it's fine. When you turn it over, that's your top bit, and that's your undercup. Sew the lace upper cup to the lower cup, matching the A points. You can top stitch the seam open, or you can press the seams to the lower cup and top stitch it down. This is not the usual way to top stitch, as it's bulky and at the apex seam. However, it looks better with the lace. So what she's suggesting is that once you've done that, top stitch it down. Now what I did with my last one was I trimmed, because it's going to be going this way. See if I can do it. Tilt this a bit for you to see. Sorry folks. Right. Because you're going to be lying it this way, away from the lace, I trimmed the fabric, the pink fabric, I trimmed that shorter than the lace, so that the lace is actually overlying the piece of fabric there. So what I'll do is, once I've done the other cup, I'll trim this down. I'll take it right down close to where the stitching is, close to that stitching, just this pink fabric, and then when we put the lace towards there, you'll just be top stitching the lace through the top. This second cup, I've already taken the thread out of this first one, and I'm going where I said it was going off. I'm going to redo that in a minute. But the second cup, the thread started going wrong. I could hear the shuttle going wrong, and it's because it was running out of thread. So I've got this problem here. So what I'm going to do is do basically the same thing as I've done with the first cup. I'm going to have to cut the thread, and I use a very, very fine pair of scissors, and I just get it under the thread where it starts to where it started to pull, you see here. So I'm trying to pick up the thread. Don't know if you can see it so well, but I'm trying to pick up a thread with my little scissors. There's one. Get that. Now then, so I've now got a loose thread there. Can you see that loose thread? And this is my favorite tool that I use. Not fingers, not anything else. A pair of pointy pliers. I always keep it by the machine. Get a hold of that thread and pull, and you've saved yourself an awful lot of hassle. There are the loops on that side. Pull those out like that, and then cut that thread there, and then I'm going to have to sew that little patch up there. I don't know why it did it, but everything else was fine, but then it just, this bit in the middle, I could hear the machine going funny, so I'm going to re-sew that. And don't forget that when you start re-sewing, you don't start where the stitching stops and where the stitching starts. Start about 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch in along the normal stitching, so you're picking it up and then carrying on from there. If you start where it just finishes, then you could end up with a hole there. So now I take my scissors and I try not to pick up the lace, but I trim the pink back a bit, just so that it's quite close to the stitching. And the best, I often find sometimes it pays to take a piece off and then cut a bit more, take a piece off, cut a bit more. And you've got to be careful that you're not cutting the lace, because if you cut into the lace, then that's where you have a problem. There's a saying, less haste, more time, is that it? I think it is. My mother was very good at knowing all these sayings. A watch pot never boils, and more haste, less haste, more time, more haste, less time, or more haste, less time, that's it. The faster you go, I can't remember what the saying is now. Anyway, I'm trimming this off. I always thought more haste, if you go faster, then you end up botching it up. If you take your time, you get round it okay. Somebody will probably tell me what the saying is, and I think it's more haste, less time, but it's what old age does for you, see, you forget what it is. So you need to press that. Once you've trimmed it down, as I've done there, you need to press it, and you need to press it away from the lace. You could do it on a pressing ham. I'll lift that up to let you see what a pressing ham looks like. It's like that. Or and you basically press it like that and do that with the iron, pressing it away. The other thing to do is, if you haven't got a pressing ham, and not everybody has, is to get a t-shirt or a jumper or something, a cotton jumper, roll it up like that. Can you see that rolled up there? This is a Marks and Spencer's t-shirt I'm busy adjusting. And put it on there and press it the same way. Do the same thing. Hold it and press it. And that serves like that. That serves exactly the same purpose. You don't really have to go out buying one of those. I've had that again. Being an old lady, that's about 30, 40 years old, that one. These days, I don't know how much they are. I don't know how much I paid for this. Mine was June Taylor ink. It's American. I don't even know June Taylor ink exists anymore. But that's one way, and this is the other way. So I've got the fabric here, and the seam is being pushed towards. I'm going to push the bottom seam towards this cup here. It's going to be pushed to the left, and I'm going to top stitch again as close as possible to the edge. So down there, one step forward and a couple of steps back to reinforce it. Hold the thread and make sure everything is light, and pull it apart if needs be. That's what I tend to, pull it apart and keep going. Right, and then do it a little bit. Don't go too fast. The faster you go, the worse you can make it of a job. Right, and keep going again. Oh, I'm getting a bit too close to the edge there, so I need to back off a bit. Right, this is on the point of the bust. That's probably why I'm not doing so good. Got a tickly face, so just let me scratch it first. Right now, make sure everything's, just keep checking that everything's pointing the right way, that everything's pointing to the left, and do it again. Make sure everything's that way. Now we're coming to the seam in the middle, and that's where it's a bit awkward to sew, because you're going to be sewing through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 layers, I think it is. And keep going. Make sure it's all pointing the right way again. Like so. So I've now sewn the top. You can see this is where I went off a bit towards the edge, and round there, round the top there. That looks quite neat apart from that little piece. I think I can get away with that. It's only about 6 stitches, or 6 or 7 stitches are slightly out. I could take them out and redo that bit, but I'd rather keep it the way it is. And on the other side, I've sewn down all the way. Now that's puckered a bit. You see that puckered bit? We can still get away with it. Sewn all the way around there and press down. Now what you can do is trim some of the lace if you want to. Just trim a few little stray pieces. Take your threads off. Trim a few stray pieces like that there. Because lace does tend to have a few pieces. And Marks and Spencer bras would put a tape over this, so you could put a tape over if you want. It's got to be like a nylon-y type tape. So what they've done, what Beverly suggests, is you do a double row. So I'm going to do a double row along there. I'm going to go in 1/8 of an inch and sew along there. In with our needle, forward a couple, and then back, and then forward. And I'm going to just try and keep parallel to the original. And the way I'm doing that is I'm watching it through this see-through piece of the foot. Now obviously I've strayed there, so I'm going to try and keep straight even though it's the first row is slightly off. And all the time again, make sure that everything's lying correctly underneath. Better to take your time than mess it up. As you get better at doing bras, I would imagine will speed up and you'd know exactly where the hiccups can be. I would anticipate you could probably make a bra within about 4 hours once you get good adept at it. So I've now done a double row there on the bra. So I've got a double row going down. This is the center of the cup, that's the point of the bra, and a double row going across there. Now I'm going to do the same with the other one. I was just saying that I follow my stitches before. I was saying I follow my previous stitch, and I keep the distance by looking through here. If you haven't got a see-through foot, didn't know what that was. If you haven't got a see-through foot, it pays you to get one. Sorry, that's the cat biscuits being released from the machine. And I recommend that if you haven't got one of these feet, to get yourself one, because they're really good at seeing what you're doing. You can actually keep your eye on the space of the stitching, so it's a really good idea. This one came with the machine, but you know, if you have a machine that doesn't have one, it pays you to try and see if you can get one. It doesn't half make a big difference for you. Two bra fronts like that, 2 like that, and the next stage that it tells us to do is to sew the power bar. Let me get a bit closer for you to see. Sew the power bar, ignore that because that's the previous step. Sew the power bar to the upper lower cup until starting exactly at the L-shaped cutout on the power bar. Press the seam to the power bar side. Do not top stitch yet. For larger cup sizes, it's optional to stabilize the underarm edge. The edge marked with the arrow with stay tape or a 3/8 inch strip of sheer cup lining. Now I didn't do that. I didn't do that bit there. I just followed the instructions and I didn't seem to have any problems. But if you have got a bigger bust, then maybe it might pay to do that. So it says sew the power bar to the upper lower cup. So let me just set you up again correctly. Right, so this is the power bar, and that bit there, let's see where we're going to be going. This is going to go from there. This is C, from there right the way around and up there. Alright, it's going to sew right the way around up there. But we don't top stitch it yet. Once we've sewn that, 1/4 inch seam all the way, cut that piece of thread. Once we've sewn that all the way down there, then we'll press it towards the power bar side. Alright, so what we start at is exactly there. That's 1/4 inch. So when we actually come to joining it together, that 1/4 inch there to there, it should all flow nicely. Right, so basically there's my power bar, this bit down here. That's the part that's more like a rectangle, and this is the part that's more like a triangular piece. So there you go, power bar, rectangular piece and triangular piece. So there's your power bar, there's your rectangular piece, and there's your triangular piece. The triangular piece is the part that's in the middle of your bra. Then there's your power bar, there's your rectangular piece. It's not really rectangular, but I'll give you an idea, and that's your triangular piece. So that's the way it should be sewn. So you want to be right sides together, and you need to sew along here, going along there, and you go, it's 1/4 inch, so you should match up to that little notch there. The top of your lace should match up to that notch up there, so that when you open it out, everything just fits nicely at the top. So we're going to do that one, same with this one, turn it over right sides together, pretty sides facing, and sew up that side seam. Now what I suggest, if you're not really very good at this, I suggest that, so you don't mess it up, get a pin and just hold the two together like that on both of them, like that, so you know that you've got the right sides. Once you've got it set out, you know that that's the way you've got to sew it. Take it to the sewing machine and start sewing.